Listener discretion is strongly advised. The following narration contains depictions of extreme violence, sexual assault, and real-world horror. It is intended for educational and historical purposes. Born March 17, 1942. John Wayne Gacy was the only son and the middle child of a blue-collar family in Chicago. His father, a World War I veteran, and his mother, Marianne, named him after the famous actor John Wayne. But behind the ornate veneer of family life, Gacy's childhood was a landscape of cruelty and abuse. His father would fling hot food at his mother, beat his children with a leather belt studded with metal, and flog them until they bled. At just 4 years old, John was molested by a 15-year-old girl with Down syndrome. At 6, he was beaten for returning a stolen toy after his mother informed his father. By 7, he was repeatedly sexually abused by a father's work colleague in a car. Later, he was beaten until he bled for crying over a dismantled treehouse. As a teenager, his mother forced him to wear her underwear as punishment, resulting in further beatings from his father. The seeds of manipulation, cruelty, and hidden rage were sown in those early years. By adulthood, Gacy's facade of normalcy as a contractor, community volunteer, and entertainer would mask unspeakable darkness. Before his murders, Gacy committed lesser crimes, theft, indecent exposure, and other acts of sexual assault. These behaviors hinted at the predatory instincts he would later escalate. Despite brushes with law enforcement, his public persona as a cheerful, helpful neighbor kept suspicion at bay. Enter Pogo the Clown. Gacy often performed as Pogo the Clown, entertaining children at parties, hospitals, and parades. The costume was a mask, both literal and figurative, allowing him to blend charm and terror beneath the painted smile and colorful suit lurked a predator who preyed on the vulnerable, turning laughter into a tool of deception. Gacy's crimes were calculated, terrifying their intimacy. He would identify vulnerable young men, runaways, hitchhikers, or teens seeking work, and invite them into his home. He would often offer food and drinks, gestures of hospitality, twisted instruments of control. Behind closed doors, he isolated his victims, stripped away their defenses, and asserted dominance. Sexual assault was often part of his ritual. Many of the victims were ultimately killed by strangulation. Their bodies were then hidden, carefully arranged in his crawl space, or discarded in Des Plaines River. The ordinary walls of his suburban home became a trap, a theater for horror where trust and innocence were weaponized against the young man he lured inside. Investigators exhumed 29 bodies in Gacy's crawl space, arranged in layers, some wrapped in plastic, some with foreign objects placed inside. 12 were found with asphyxiation as the likely cause of death. Each victim was numbered, body 1 through 33, ages ranging from 14 to 21. By mid-1978, the crawl space was full. Gacy began disposing of victims in the Des Plaines River, Robert Pice among them. Each death was violent, methodical, leaving a ripple of horror that would reach far beyond the riverbanks. Gacy was arrested in 1978. Years of legal battles followed, appeals were denied, and on May 10, 1994, he was executed by lethal injection at Stateville Correction Center. His final words were dismissive, "Kiss my ass." Even in death, he remained unrepentant, a shadow of terror that left countless lives shattered. Gacy's crimes prompted legal changes, including Illinois' Missing Child Recovery Act in 1984, and later, the nationwide Amber Alert system. His house was demolished in April 1979, and decades later, DNA analysis continued to identify victims, which is a grim reminder of the scope of his crimes. The Pogo persona has cast a long shadow over modern horror. Pennywise from It, Captain Spaulding from House of a Thousand Corpses, The Cursed Father and Clown, Twisted the Clown in American Horror Story, and Art the Clown from Terrifier. They all carry traces of Gacy's real-world terror. Each character embodies a deceptive charm, psychological manipulation, and cold-blooded violence that define his predation. These fictional figures are not mere monsters. They are echoes of reality, reflecting a truth too chilling to ignore. That evil often wears a smile, hides behind ordinary facades, and preys on the unsuspecting. John Wayne Gacy's story is a warning. Monsters do not always lurk under beds or in the dark forest. Sometimes they live next door, in costumes and smiles and seemingly ordinary lives. His victim stories demand remembrance, a stark call to vigilance, awareness, and compassion. Evil can wear the most ordinary mask, and the price of trust can be unimaginable. Now I know I went over John Wayne Gacy pretty quickly, but if you want to learn a lot more about him, I strongly advise you looking into some different documentaries you can find here on YouTube, as well as reading some articles you can find online.